Welcome to Magic.ai, the operating system for hospitality. At Magic, we know an operating system is more than just software and systems. It's about people, because hospitality is nothing without them. So supporting the hospitality community is our number one goal.
I think there needs to be more of a support system. Like, you have to love this business and you have to love every aspect of it, including sharing tribal knowledge on what is successful and also tribal knowledge of what is a failure.
Founded by lifelong experts, we're building the place where everyone in hospitality, from seasoned pros to first-timers, can gather, share, and grow together. Plus, we're crafting scalable tools and AI-supported software to boost your business. Dive into our vibrant community platform packed with meaningful conversations and robust tools and templates designed just for you. Need more? Our custom software solutions have got you covered. From recruiting and staffing to digital playbooks and dashboards, we're working on building a unique hub of resources unlike any other. Magic is your single point of origin for important conversations, accessible tools, valuable insights, and more. Join us at magic.ai. The evolution of hospitality is here.
I would just say do it like this and expect it to be done, but you can't do that anymore. So systems are huge, and it does create a culture and also just a responsibility to understand what you need done for each dish in a very straightforward manner.
Chef Ron McKinlay brings well over a decade of international cooking experience in renowned Michelin and hatted restaurants across the UK, Australia, and the Middle East. After traveling, working, and training with some of the best chefs around the world, he's constantly aiming to take Canadian cuisine to new heights.
I could take all the techniques that I learned overseas and just apply them to what was local and what was around me here, so it forces a different level of creativity. It's just a matter of finding out how to do it with what's around you. This kitchen's very much a learning kitchen. I'm happy to give it if they're happy to, put in the work to take it. So communication is big. I think the next 10 years will be massively pivotal in one, curating a profession that people can be proud to be part of again, because I think a lot of the young cooks coming through now are in a completely different mindset that we ever were, and we have to take from that and use it to figure out how it's going to look.
Chef Ron, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. That was a very, very nice way of putting what I do. That's definitely more eloquent than I would say it.
Do we get some of it right anyways, I hope?
You got some of it right. No, you're bang on. No, I mean, okay. It's right, for sure.
All right, so how did, I want to talk a little bit about, I guess, to give the listener an idea of, your perspective as a professional in hospitality and a chef and all of those things, right? But it starts with your story, obviously, and I think we can get into it. I want to talk a little bit about how you've gotten to where you have throughout your career and in this industry. But it really all starts in Vancouver, doesn't it? And so, I mean, I'd like to hear a little bit from you on, I guess, Vancouver specifically in terms of how it influenced your love of food. Because when I read about you and I kind of read a little bit about your, I don't want to say your childhood, but you kind of where you came from, right? And that sense that you originally got from your, I guess, sense of place, really, right? Mm-hmm. That has had to have an influence on who you are as both obviously a human, but also as a chef, because it resonated with me being from New England. And I see a lot of similarities between Vancouver and New England in a lot of ways, right? We have the farms, we have the sea, we have the mountainous regions, we have like this pretty diverse geographical layout and a lot of different industries that have been built off of those geographical layouts. And there's, a thematic tie to all of them, which is food. And so I guess if you can kind of tell me a little bit about that, I would love to hear, because I felt like when I was reading more and more about Vancouver and where you grew up, it really just kind of hit home for me.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I mean, just outside of Vancouver and anywhere in British Columbia for that matter, the Pacific Northwest, you're in nature, whether or not you want to be. Even if you're growing up in the suburbs, you always see the mountains. So I think that played a part in what I do now, because I always like to have a natural aspect to the food that we do, putting nature on the plate without being, a wanker about it or hiding behind anything unnecessary. So I think that came, I guess, in a way from, growing up. We were close to the mountains, we were close to the ocean. I was always outside with my parents doing stuff, and always in the woods or or down at the beach as a kid. So that in many ways, I guess, has brought me back to how I look at food too, because I still like to incorporate lots of stuff from the coast. And whenever I'm by an ocean, I feel a lot more at home than I do, in Toronto, being that, I got the lakes here and everything, but it's not the same. It's different. You're landlocked. So I think that definitely plays a part. But also, I think it didn't matter where I was always in the kitchen with my mom growing up. So that would have played a part in terms of the falling in love with food and falling in love with eating. Of course, definitely, because I was a fat kid, so I loved food and I loved just to eat everything she was making.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. We can relate. But I think no matter where I was growing up, I would have had a love for food for sure, because because of my upbringing and because of being close to my mom and still close to her. She loves food. But in terms of like a geographical sense, definitely, I think growing up in the Pacific Northwest brought me closer to just appreciating nature that much more.
Yeah, I think spending time in the kitchen with parents or grandparents, for me, it was my mom and my grandmother. They were both Italian. My mom still cooks Italian food. We're a big Italian family. And
she make the gravy on Sundays.
Yeah, she makes gravy. My grandmother made gravy every Sunday. And I still... like, that has such a place in the way that I think about community and food and bringing people together and holidays and tradition. I think having family that loves to cook is just so influential from such a young age. I can't imagine having a mother who didn't love food or a grandmother who didn't love food because they taught me to love food,
Yeah, I mean, I think for many, it is a learned behavior from a young age, for sure. Being around it and being accepting of it. And I mean, obviously, I cook now for a living, so it rubbed off on me. But that was definitely a big part of it for sure growing up.
Yeah, and there's pieces of it that get so ingrained in you, right? Like I have a tattoo of a bluefish on my hand because I grew up bluefishing, right, with my stepfather. It was like one of our things. He just took me out, and it was like, it's such a memory of like standing on the beach, like surf casting, into these crazy choppy waves and pulling in like 10 bluefish at a time, and like that stuff just never leaves you, I think. And if you can find ways to somehow tell those stories through what you do, then you're one step closer to connecting with your guests, right?
Yeah, and look back at it too, and if you're forced to look back and think about that stuff too, then it kind of tells that full circle tale too, and helps you connect the dots. Because sometimes people ask why I'm a chef, and I don't really have a good answer for them. But if you take a time out and look back at and how you were raised and what you did and all those little things, it helps to make a little bit more sense. And also, you just have to be a bit of a lunatic, but that comes later. that comes later. That comes later for sure. Yeah.
So lots of big moves, professionally and personally, to the UK, to Australia, to Oman, to the Middle East.
Yeah.
I guess, one of the things Carolyn and I are wondering about is how that affected your culinary philosophy, right? And you had to have been in a situation where you were learning different things at each turn, and yet there was some similarities in some way too, right? That continued to influence you regardless of where you were, right?
For sure. I mean, the foundation for me was definitely when I trained in Edinburgh, and that was a real strong sense of like classical French cuisine. Obviously using local produce and ethos that I still look at now in terms of like using what's around us and everything and applying the techniques learned there. And then after my time in Edinburgh, I went to Australia, and again I would look for similar kitchens with similar techniques and training, but then use what's around you, use what's good in Australia, and you apply those techniques there. And I think that was what was exciting to me when I first came back to Canada, was I could take all the techniques that I learned overseas and just apply them to what was local and what was around me here. So it forces a different level of creativity, but with a little bit of confidence behind you, because you know how to do it. It's just a matter of finding out how to do it with what's around you, which is kind of also the exciting thing, right?
Yeah. So it seems like wherever you are, right, in the UK or in Australia or now back in Canada, you seem to really have a sense of place, right, by tuning into what's around you. And it seems to really influence your dishes. How do you do that? How do you connect to your surroundings? Is it about spending time out in nature? Is it about, how can you tune in to what's going on around you and bring that to the plate?
I mean, that's a tough one, and I wish I had more consistencies with that stuff, because I kind of just wing it in many ways. But I think I think the seasons drive that more than anything else. When you're able to connect with good suppliers, and that takes time to build relationships with them, but when they understand what you like, after a while, they can work with you and tell you what's coming up in season, and that and this and that. And once you're comfortable with the seasons around you, and you know what's coming in and what's local and what's going to be good, then I think you start to derive what you want to do from there. But I think that's the biggest thing, and I think with most chefs, seasonality and locality to an extent is very important. Local can mean different things to different people, though. I mean, some people are very intense with that and keep it super local. Local for me could be coast to coast, but we're landlocked, so I still like to highlight ingredients from the Pacific Northwest or back home, or stuff from Newfoundland and stuff from Nova Scotia. And Canada, the same as the States, they're big country. It's a huge country, right? It's massive. Yeah. So one coast is completely different than the next coast, and then we have the prairie provinces that have a whole bunch of, like, some of the best mushrooms I've ever seen. And getting to delve into that and being able to use those in terms of it's local because it's Canadian to me, that's exciting. And getting to realize what's coming up next, what's coming in next month, and being here for a few years now, I know in a few more weeks, in the middle of September, we're going to be getting these amazing little pumpkins, and right now we're getting great chanterelles from Saskatoon, and all that stuff is basically how I write my menu. So that's my own cheat sheet. I just look at what's coming in and kind of pair it together, and then go from there, and base that on techniques I already know and I'm comfortable with, and try to put it on a plate in a way that you know what you're eating and you know where you are.
And do you feel like you're at a place right now in your career where you are moving into a little bit of a mentorship role? Like, because I remember you as a young cook. I guess I can say we were both kind of young cooks back at the time.
Yeah, we were. I was
when we cooked together last, right? Which was 2012 in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And now I feel, without knowing, that you're kind of moving into a mentorship role where you're teaching your cooks about these philosophies, right? And you're able to kind of imbue them with some of this vision into, like, being connected to the land, and, still having it be obviously incredibly innovative and technique driven. Like, that's not an easy thing to do as a leader. And I guess I'd be just so curious to hear about how you do that, particularly with, today's generation.
Yeah, I mean, that is a difficult thing. And I think it's, sometimes you don't realize that you're that person at the time, because you always grew up looking at people that were that person to you, and that was the struggle back then, thinking, I'm working my ass off for this guy, and I don't know if someone will ever do that for me. And then you find yourself in a role where people do that. So I think, it's a humbling experience for sure. And you do take on that role, whether or not it's by default or if you've asked to be put in that role. But at the same time, finding people that will, it's give and take, right? Like, if I'm happy to give it, if they're happy to, put in the work to take it, but you have to put in the work to get that, and respect goes both ways, right? So, if someone's going to come and work hard for me, I have no problem giving them the time to show it to them. But if they're not going to do it, then I'm not going to do it. And I'm pretty old school like that, and it's the way I was raised. And there's a few things ingrained in me from back in the day that I still have to shed, that's for sure. And that's a work in progress, and I'm very aware of that. And that's part of the struggle moving forward in this industry. But being put in a position now where young cooks look up to you to do certain things, and you're a role model in certain ways, is definitely a task that I'm learning to understand. But it's case by case, and I don't know. Sometimes I might do it well. Sometimes I probably don't. And I think there's a trust in that. When you find someone that trusts you and you know that they look at you like that, I think you approach every situation a little bit differently, because they do hang on your word at times, and that's invigorating as well as terrifying, because you don't want to lead someone down the wrong path or say the wrong thing in the heat of a bad service, and that could change their perspective on their career too, which is a bit of pressure to take. And I've been on both sides of that. That's like all the time. You teeter on that, right? Like, service is still service. We're a busy restaurant. We're a business. We need to hit our percentages and our numbers. But being able to make people understand that's your role and that's why you're acting a certain way is also part of the battle. Because when I was a kid, I didn't care. I didn't understand why the chef was being a maniac. I didn't worry about the money that was coming in or going out, because you don't think those things. But if you were told, or you could understand, or you could relate a little bit better, then maybe you could take those situations differently.
Do you take the time now to communicate a little bit more transparently with your cooks about why it's so important to hit your percentages and, you know, why you behave the way you do sometimes? Or
I'm getting better at it. Definitely not perfect, but I think delegating and speaking more. I mean, those things, yes, with my senior team, because they need to understand that so they can progress. This kitchen's very much a learning kitchen in many ways for me as well, and I'm still learning. I mean, when I took this job, I'd only come from kitchens that had 4 or 5 cooks in it. And then this one, you know, I've got about 35 cooks on the roster. So I definitely blagged my way in on that one for sure. And, you know, I learned by doing and by messing up a lot, and still do. And that's the only way I learn. But, you know, now understanding and having my senior team and trying to teach them certain things to look at before they have to deal with the problems that I dealt with without having someone to tell me that. Because my chefs back in the day didn't tell me that stuff. They didn't. That's not how it was.
And when you go from 5 to 30 or 3 or 4 to 30, like there's a learning curve there as a leader too, right? Like it takes a whole different style of leadership.
It's completely different. And you have to understand systems that you never needed before. And that's still something that I'm still learning, and we're still trying to make things a little bit more practical and smarter than harder for these covers. And again, that's a process, but it comes and it's working for us, and we're finding our feet and still able to progress that way. But that is a big change.
Can you give us some examples of those systems that you're talking about? Because I think that's critical, and like the architecture behind, you know, a successful functioning operation, right, is built on systems, right?
Well, it is, and I think so. A lot of things, like, I mean, especially for us, one is, you know, back in the day, you'd write your own mise en place lists and you'd write your own things because the chef would just be like, you're going to do this, this, and this tomorrow. But now that changes. We write the mise en place sheets. We do, responsibility sheets, so everyone knows off a certain dish what you're responsible for. So communication is big, as well as menu management. That's something people don't talk about a lot. But if you're going to run a 7-day operation, lunch, dinner, private rooms, everything, you need to have mise en place that can be done one job for 3 or 4 different reasons. Whether it's a puree that could be used at lunch and dinner and the PDR banquet, or maybe the proteins you're breaking down, you'll be able to use those in 2 different services and things like that. You have to maximize. Each job has to have a reason and be smart. You don't want to have one menu item that's only for one service that you have to do every single day, and there's no crossover mise en place, because then you're just, the food leaving the kitchen's not going to look as good. 2, you're putting more stress on your cooks because they have to do more jobs than necessary. And at the end of the day, it's more stress on yourself because everyone's going to be running around with crazy energy in the kitchen, and you can feel that. So
systems create culture. I mean, in a way, right?
And mental health, like it helps with mental health too. But it does create a culture. And then, you know, also cooks see that and they understand when they get to another level, that's how they should have things presented to them too. Because like I said, in the old school kitchens I worked at, no one gave me a mise en place list. No one gave me a sheet. No one gave me anything. So that is a culture. And I think it's also, you know, informative, and it's, you know, it's a good learning curve. And one that we learned, because when I first started here, I didn't do that either. I didn't think like that.
Yeah.
I would just say, do it like this and expect it to be done, but you can't do that anymore. So systems are huge, and it does create, you know, a culture, and also just a responsibility to understand what you need done for each dish in a very straightforward manner.
Well, and it takes the ambiguity out of it, right? It's like there's no, if you can lay it out in systems and it's prescribed by everyone, and there's transparency and a line of sight into day-to-day operations, it's like there's nowhere to hide, right? Like for any.
Well, that's it. And if you don't do that, if you don't give someone the responsibility, they'll especially in a kitchen this size, it's easy to be like, oh, I thought they were going to do it. Yeah. I didn't know I needed to do this. So if you can take that out of the equation, it benefits everybody.
And it's accountability for you too, in a way, because
exactly
right.
It totally
helps. It helps you
for everyone
in the same way.
Yeah.
Totally. Totally.
And you know where to look if a problem arises, because it was discussed earlier. This should be done. Why wasn't it done?
Right.
You knew you were supposed to do it, so you know.
Yeah.
It kind of helps move the needle along a little bit faster.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so chef, it seems like the way you're talking, you have 35 people in the kitchen, menu planning, open 7 days, lunch, dinner, private dining. You are busy. I mean, like hugely, hugely busy. But you have this
He goes,
incredible.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. We all are, the whole team. But yeah, of course, we're very busy.
Yeah. But on top of this, it seems like over the past few years, you've done an incredible job at marketing yourself, the restaurant, and curating sort of this style. And, you know, these, if anyone's been on your social media, right, there are these gorgeous shots of beautiful food. They're slightly moody and there's, you know, music set to them, and these really beautiful shots. And I would just love to talk about how this came about. And, you know, there's so much to dig into here on why.
Well, thank you. That's nice to hear. I think social media plays a big part in the restaurant game now, for sure. I didn't plan on it happening. I think it was during COVID where I actually had time to look at what photos that I'd taken and stuff that we were doing. And, you know, I work for a very big business that has a marketing team, but we have, you know, 30, 40 restaurants. So for them to find time to get what we're doing out there, it's not realistic. And I was just like, well, you know, fuck it. Like, we're doing cool stuff. People need to see it. I had the time during COVID to figure out actually how to do it, you know, at least put it on my phone, because I'm not exactly savvy with all that stuff. And then it just kind of went from there. The stuff we were doing, people kind of related to it. And I think especially chefs of, you know, our generation as well, seeing some old school techniques and stuff and bringing them back. And that also, you know, invigorated me to delve a little bit deeper into that stuff too, because, you know, I got even more interested in it. And then it just kind of went from there. You know, the whole music thing, I had a background in sound engineering when I was younger. So I've always loved music and 90s hip hop, and it kind of went from there, and it just turned into something that I enjoyed doing, you know. And for me, it's almost like, you know, it's almost journaling what we're doing, and I can look back on photos and because my memory is horrible. So at least now I can look back at stuff that we did a couple of years ago and be like, oh yeah, we did this, we can go back to it. And, you know, I've been lucky enough that people have related to it and started following along with what we're doing. And as well, because I'm here at the restaurant all the time, it's also, you know, it does market what we're doing here. And if you come here, you will see what we're doing, because it's literally, I just put my phone in a coffee cup on my cutting board and like film what I'm doing. There's nothing fancy about it.
That was going to be the next thing that we were going to ask, because there's definitely an aesthetic, right? Which I think is dope. Like it's so consistent across your platform. It's this kind of like, you know, dark, like alluring kind of aesthetic, right?
Natural, earthy.
Right.
Yeah, like we're talking about sense of place, right? It's like the photos even have a sense of place, you know, where you are.
Yeah, and so Carol and I were talking earlier. We're like, God, is there somebody that's doing the light work? Is there, like, you know, like, how does it all?
Well, we're
on the
54th floor of a building. You know, it's a stunning property, so there's lots of natural light. So that's cheating. One, I don't have any lights or cameras or anything, but I have great natural light, so that helps. Obviously, when we do big events, we have photographers come in, and, you know, we use those photos, and so do I. But for the most part, it's literally just my phone, a coffee cup, and my cutting board, and that's it. No tricks or gadgets. Or, I mean, I'm lucky I have a fully operational kitchen behind me, and I'm just using mise en place that we're doing. I'm not, you know, a cook having to make these foods at home and go to the store and film it on a cutting board in your own kitchen at home. Like, I have that. I'm lucky to have the space I have to do the stuff, but it is just literally mise en place that we're doing, and I'm trying to highlight it for menus coming up or stuff that we're about to do. You know, it brings people in, and you know, sometimes people will come in and ask for stuff that we've been doing, and more or less they're on the menu at the time. So, and it's just kind of evolved from there, in a great way. You know, it's been fun, and it's a great way to connect with other chefs, and you know, bounce questions back and forth with people. And again, like you said, creating a culture in a kitchen. social media has created a culture for chefs as well to interact with, which is great, because before that, you would never have been able to, chat with guys in the States or make friends with guys in the UK and Australia and this and that. And it's just through, respecting what they're doing and conversations start.
So it seems like this is resonating with other chefs, but also diners, right? So have you seen an increase in new diners coming into the restaurant because of what they see on social media?
I wouldn't say, social media for sure across the board brings people into restaurants. For us, it hasn't made us any busier. We've been here for almost 30 years now, so we have a very secure clientele. What I would say is I've noticed since this has taken off, the age range of the diners has gotten a lot more consistent. Whereas when I first started, I think it was, later 30s, 40s, 50s, businessmen and women coming in for lunch and then dinner, special occasions and whatnot. And now we're seeing a lot of a different demographic come in. And, people come in. Sometimes people come in for the view, and that is what it is. But I think more often than not now we see people coming in not just for that, which, means we're doing something right. I mean, this place has been here for 30 years, so clearly something's been done right for a long time. And this is just kind of keeping us in the mainstream a little bit.
Obviously, social media takes some. So you said, you're putting your phone in a cup and filming what you're doing, and but it does take some time commitment, right? And I think some chefs might feel maybe resentful about the time that social media takes, or I don't know. I feel like a lot of chefs really want to stay in the kitchen and they want to, they have 100 fires to put out and they might not have time, but it feels like this is something that you make time for, right? So how do you balance the time commitments across everything that you're trying to juggle?
Most of the stuff I'll just film at work if I'm doing something, and I don't do it I don't set up a thing and film for hours and hours and hours. It's pretty quick when I'm doing it, and I'm just doing the mise en place anyways. I know what chefs are like too. We always like to bitch and moan about other chefs, so that's what we do. But
not true. That's a lie.
Yeah, it's a lie. Yeah, we don't do that at all. But I would say that social media is free. It's marketing for yourself. You need to brand yourself. You need to be smart, and you need to think about down the road, because whether you're working for a big company or your own restaurant, people need to know what you're doing to come in the door and eat your food. So make the time, figure out how to do it, or get someone to help you do it, because it doesn't cost money. It costs time. Time management's the thing, and I've just figured out how to make time for it. And it's also cheating in a way, because I actually enjoy it. I like doing it. I like the aspect of it, pairing music together with food and being able to show what we're doing. If you don't enjoy it, then it's like anything else, you're just not going to do it. So I'm lucky that I actually like it, and it's opened up a lot of doors for me as well, professionally and personally. So for me, it's a way of marketing myself as not just the chef of Canoe, but also a little personal branding. And down the road, when I want to do something, it's almost like a resume, right? People can see what you're doing and what you're about, and I think it's really important. And a lot of old school chefs might not understand it as much as the new generation coming through, but it's a tool like anything else, and you have to figure out how to use it and use it for yourself and for your business. So I think being ignorant to the internet and social media it's an old school thing, and it's a stigma that people just have to let go, because use it for it's a tool. So figure it out.
And you find your niche too, right? And then you kind of you find your lane and you just go. It's so funny, because for me, I don't know, I've been at the same amount of followers for a long time. And I think originally, my feed was mostly food driven and ingredient driven and technique driven and sourcing and farms and right, all those things. And that's probably how you and I originally met. I don't even remember, to be honest. And so I was kind of entrenched in that chef community, that culinary community from that perspective, because people would look to my feed to see those sorts of things. Now it's been interesting, because my kind of personal social media has evolved where it's mostly about like my life and my kids and this
Mm-hmm.
kind of evolution of self that I've gone through or whatever. And it's funny because like my dad, who is rarely on social media, but when he is, like he'll check in on my Instagram, whatever, and he'll be like, "You're not putting up enough food. You should put up a recipe. All these chefs follow you."
Thanks,
And
Dad.
well, it's funny because like he'll get in my head and he'll be like, "Yeah, that is really true. I haven't like posted a recipe in like a couple months or something," and then I'll do it. And like the engagement is actually so much lower than it would have been with like a picture of my kids in my tractor.
Yeah.
It's like, it's
Yeah.
so funny. And so really what you're doing is you're creating connection, right, in a way, and to a certain community. And it's just really, I think it's such an interesting tool when viewed through that lens. And yeah, it's just weird. It's a weird thing.
Yeah,
but
I remember when I was first starting and I could see the follower count going up, and that was a great thing. And I think it's got to a point now where I don't follow I never have really followed trends. I just do what I do, and and that's it's also because I just don't have the patience to follow any trends or check out what a hashtag I should use or what time should I post this or that. And I used to do that at the beginning. I just don't have the patience for it anymore. So sometimes it does well, sometimes it doesn't. But I think it gets to a point where it's just I'm still going to just do what I do, and if you want to follow, cool. If you don't. But I just sometimes I just don't post for ages, and sometimes I will, and that's also a good place to be in as well. If you do want to get something going, it's tricky because do you follow a trend or do you follow a niche? And niches aren't always followed. So I was lucky when I first started to get a lot of eyes because during COVID, every single chef had their phone in their hand all day.
Yeah.
So without that, would it have been the same? I don't know. But I kind of was able to capitalize on it without thinking about it at the time. Just because I had my phone in my hand all the time. So it was very lucky and a good time for chefs to start connecting. I made a lot of really good connections during COVID too, with other chefs that were out of work because you can relate and go back and forth and bitch and moan about the industry and start talking about things. But I think COVID was a horrible time, but also in many ways it was a very good time for hospitality because it was a bit of a reset where everyone could really think about the way it was moving, and it wasn't moving in a good direction. And I think it's created a lot of conversations in a positive way for the next 10, 15 years or however it's going to go with this industry because it needed it. So I can't see it happening in any other scenario.
Yeah, and that's exactly how we feel too, right? That we're kind of at this pivotal moment, which is what this thing is all about. And certainly, this process of interviewing leaders in hospitality all over the world. What do you think what does the future look like? Like what, not just social media, not just media in general, but kind of what does the evolution for hospitality look like for you as to where you stand today?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one because the system in restaurants in many ways is flawed, and we have to figure that out. And doing this collective thing that you're doing is a very good way to do it because you have to bring together people that have gone through it, know what doesn't work so that you can fix and make something that does. I think the next 10 years will be massively pivotal in one, curating a profession that people can be proud to be part of again, because I think a lot of the young cooks coming through now are in a completely different mindset that we ever were, and we have to take from that and use it to figure out how it's going to look, because their mind frames and what they want to achieve and how they want to do it is different than us. We were happy to work 14, 15, 16 hours a day and push on, and we got a buzz off of that. That doesn't happen anymore. So I think trying to figure out how you can make a business profitable, still give your staff a healthy work-life balance, maintaining a healthy mental attitude at work, and all those things is the hurdle that we all have to deal with. How do we do that, and how it's going to look in 10 years? My God, I don't know. It doesn't help that we're in a recession either, right? Like all these things add to the stress of a business. And each business has a different price points and different margins, and how can you pay your staff, and how can you still pay for the rent? I mean, it's a big question. I don't know. I think you'll find a lot of different ways restaurants are going to operate, and people are going to try a lot of different things. Some will work, some won't. But I think a lot more little private things will pop up. I see a lot of massive restaurants opening, but I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand why.
What about what about diversification of your offerings? I mean, you guys are obviously a fine dining restaurant, right?
Mm-hmm.
But are there other areas that you feel like Canoe could play in to, offer a breadth of a breadth of experience, I guess I would say, for the guest?
Yeah.
Are there things like that? Because I mean, I've talked to operators who are like, obviously private event space has become like paramount. Like if you have a restaurant and you don't have private event capabilities, you're shooting yourself completely in the foot, right? You're totally in trouble. Some people are getting into fast casual or QSR or CPG, right? These kind of other
I think you're right. I think every site is going to have some kind of diversification angle to it. How to utilize all your different spaces in many different ways, and how to create revenue even when the doors are shut, because the second a restaurant shuts its doors, it's not making money anymore. But you need to figure out a way to do that, whether it's classes or merchandise or something you can offer that the next guy can't. That's going to be really important down the road. I mean, I have a few ideas moving forward that I think down the road is something that I envision, and I guess I can't get into that really right now, but but it does. But I would say that my ideas do have a space that is completely diversified and chopping and changing, and has to move, be able to move with however the next 10 years goes. So I think a brick and mortar restaurant in the next 10 years, we'll see those evolve a lot, because I don't think just opening up for lunch and dinner is enough anymore. And I think you have to be able to have a little bit more adaptability and freedom to, change things or add things or different features. The guests are also getting a lot more food savvy, and they want more. And if you can offer more and constantly give something that's exciting, that's the way to go, especially in fine dining. I mean, that's probably one of the hardest places to be in, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like I feel like we live in a world right now where it's ultra fine dining, high end, right? Or it's kind of fast cash. But everybody in the middle is kind of getting squeezed, right? And it's tough, man. It's a hard
there's no
space
easy
right now.
answers, that's for sure. I do think, though, you will see a lot of pop-up elite fine dining places opening up, but more so not maybe brick and mortar, but ticketed events and things like that, because there are people that want to pay, and they will pay for it if it's an exclusive, really cool event. How they do that, I don't know, but I think I've seen a few popping up here and there. I think that's something that we will see, but I do think fine dining is going to slowly start moving closer to not fast casual, but something that's a little bit more relaxed. And because at the end of the day, you need covers. You need people you need to turn the tables. You need to get more heads and seats. So,
well, and being a restaurant that's been in business for 30 plus years now, right?
Right.
You guys must have an incredible pool of regulars, right?
For sure.
So I guess I would wonder, it seems to me that the tremendous value in that is being able to leverage those relationships for other things, right? Like whether it's the event space or whether it's eventually doing, something more casual, like a pop-up somewhere or something. I guess, reminding those people that you're there, tapping on their shoulders, saying, hey, we've loved, having this relationship with you. Now we're doing X. Come check this out.
You liked what we did. You liked what we did here. Why don't you see if you like what we're doing over here?
I mean, and as a business, the group I work for, Oliver Bonacini, does do that for sure, because they have many, many restaurants in the city. So they do leverage those contacts to, travel to the other restaurants and check them out for sure. So as a business operator, that is definitely part of their game plan, because they're one of the biggest operators in the country, if not the biggest hospitality company in the country. So you do have to do that, and all the other sites are completely different. So it's not a cookie cutter operation by any means in that regard. So they do that, and you have to, for sure. But you have to find ways to keep your regulars excited and coming back, and whether it's going to another one of our restaurants or doing events here, we're able to do a few events every year where we have guest chefs come in, and those are always exciting and fun for the customer, but also for the staff to keep us engaged and always learning. But the next 10 years in hospitality, that's a big one. I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of changes, and there's going to be a lot of really cool ideas coming through, and I'm excited to see more of them. But it's crunch time too, because it's just not easy right now. nor is it ever. I mean, this industry is never easy, but like, my God, we've had a few things thrown at us.
The thinnest the margins have ever been, right? I mean, and that's what
It's ridiculous.
The casual diner, and I don't mean, in casual restaurants, but I mean the person who dines out, once a week or maybe even once every few weeks, right? That's something that they just don't understand. I don't think they really understand. Like, if you look at that, let's take a burger, you look at that burger on the plate, or a steak, right? They don't understand the cost percentage on that piece or on that plate, as it, as the perspective relates to labor and cost of goods and rent and insurance and like all the things now that are, and they don't want to, and they don't care. And I'm not going to say nor should they, because I think that it would be an idyllic world where, the consumer is that tapped into to hospitality in that way. It's meant to be an escape. So, perhaps, they shouldn't have to worry about it. But I think it's the disconnect, and we have to figure out how we talk about it in a way that gets the guest to understand, right, that delta of cost has gotten exponentially greater, right?
Well, of course, and what they're paying for, they have to feel like it's warranted too, and that comes from information and understanding on their part too. So figuring that out is also, it's important, but they have to walk away thinking that they had an experience that they wanted and they got their money's worth.
So this is 3 questions. Answers are meant to be short and punchy. You have 60 seconds, but really you have more. Starting with the first one, who is the one person that you have hired that has transformed your business?
So my head chef Rod and my executive pastry chef Raf. So Ron, Rod, and Raf, which everyone loves a bit of alliteration, so that's great. So both of them came on at a very similar time, and it was after I'd almost lost my entire senior team through them all working for me for years. And, I was like, what the fuck? I need to find a whole new senior team. And they kind of both came along, and they've, there's a reason I'm on this podcast right now with you guys, because they're in the kitchen right now organizing everything. So without those two guys, there's no way I could do what I do now. And the way that we're able to communicate and relate, and their strengths are my weaknesses and vice versa. I think those have been the 2 of the best things that have happened to the business, and also just how the kitchen is run. And for me personally as well, getting people that you can trust and have around you, that lowers your stress levels and allows creativity to flow a lot easier. So those are 2, that would definitely be the best ones I've had in quite a while.
How long have they been with you?
Raf will be almost 2 years in December, and Rod, I guess he's at 1.5 years now, maybe a little more.
It takes some time, right, to develop that trust and the shorthand and letting them sort of take over more responsibility. How long do you think that took before it started to feel like, okay, we're in this, we're doing it?
Oh, a good few months for sure. It takes a while. Even just seeing them, change techniques that they used to use or the ways that they used to work, and then adapt how we work here. All that takes time, and the only way to do that is by doing it together. But I said to both of them before I hired them, and I can usually tell, like, if I feel like I can sit down with someone on my day off and have a beer with them, we're going to get along. And I think with both of them, that was immediate. So I knew it would work.
Yeah. In a kitchen, I feel like you just spend so much time with people, right? So you have to enjoy being around them, right? It's just.
Oh yeah. And I'm very black and white too. So like, if I like you, I like you. And if I don't like it, we're both going to know about it very quickly. So, and with those guys, it's, it's very apparent. They're very important to everything that we do here, and definitely, keeping me sane as well, which is important.
Yeah. When I staged for my first kitchen job, I remember someone in the industry saying, like, just be yourself, just be nice. And I was like, no, but I'm worried about like my skill set and being good enough, like technically good enough. And they were like, no, all they want to know is that you will work hard, that you're responsible, and that they want to be around you.
That's way more important now than ever, because skill sets don't enter the kitchen anymore. It's more if you just think that they're cool, they can handle it, you can teach them. But do they come in, and if they're happy when they come in the kitchen and they have an energy about them, great. Because if not, like, I'm the only moody prick that can be in the kitchen. You know, I don't need anyone else to be moody and grumpy all the time, right? So that's very important, and you see that more and more now, because the skill set of an average cook now, as opposed to 10, 15 years ago, it's different, which is fine. It is what it is, but you have to be okay with that. And like you said, you'd rather be around someone you just want to be around with.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Next one. What's been the most successful marketing decision that you made for your business?
I guess utilizing social media, to be fair. I think that's, and again, like I said, it's not my business, but in terms of like branding and being able to get what we do out to the public, it's utilizing social media for what it is, and it's free marketing, and it's there's transparency. People can see what we're doing. They come in, they see what we're doing on there. They come in and they see that we're doing it in the kitchen. So there's just no bullshit.
What is the one tool that you use every day? And that can be a software, that can be something you pick up and actually, use with your hands. What is that thing?
A Sharpie. Every day. Yeah.
What a good answer.
Yeah.
I love that.
Definitely. If not a Sharpie, for me, it would be my butcher knife for sure. But I mean, if you talk to any chef in a kitchen, they have a Sharpie.